Welcome back, everybody, to Catching You. And your co-host, Rusty Ham. With me is my beautiful other co-host, Lacie Ham. Hi, Lacie.
Hello.
We have a special guest with us today. Cheri, is it Naudin? Is that how you say
Yes,
it?
sir. Yes, you did it right.
Um, she is right now. You are the owner or co-owner of Collegiate Sports Advocate. We wanted to get you on here because we've been talking to some college or some travel ball coaches lately and talking about the recruiting process. So we wanted to get you on and get your thoughts on it. But first, before we get into that, let's get some background of you, where you grew up, maybe your relationship with your father, since this is a father-daughter podcast. And then we can get into the meat and potatoes of the
Love
recruiting
it.
process.
And my father is tasked, so this is nice for me to be able to talk about him. But he was a football player. He played football for the University of Arizona in the 60s and literally the typewritten rosters. I mean, it's just awesome to see the old school type of thing. But he
Yeah.
ended up having all three of us while he was in college. I have two older sisters. And then moved to California because it was like the place to get a job and to raise a family. And he had a grandmother that lived near Knott's Berry Farm, so we were very familiar with Orange County, and we grew up there. And we played softball. My dad played men's track pitch in the 70s. I mean, Coach Chad, and we would all go watch. And it was a big old mushy ball, and boy, they could really hurl it. The pitching was amazing, and I played Little Miss softball and West Garden Grove softball, and with some famous girls that carried on, and many of us are still friends. I was a little tiny catcher. I went to Pacifica High School, but I did not play softball in high school. It was just a different time. I was a cheerleader. Nobody's surprised by that. I was a cheerleader, and kind of my natural personality to be cheering on everything. And I just like to have friends and make relationships. And that's some of the foundation of how I started this. Was my dad said, "You're not an athlete unless you run track and field," or we did AAU track and field. Or I just were raised around being athletes and shared gloves and shared cleats because that was just what you did. And a bat was those metal aluminum bats you got from a batting cage, and it went clink. And there was
Yeah.
no home runs. I mean, there was no such thing. Well, I just had a love for the game back then and played women's 11-inch, for several years into my 40s, just with, rec teams basically, but they called your A, B, or C leagues, and had a great time and played with some USA people. And I mean, just went out there to have a good time, really, but raised my own children in the sports.
Very cool. Now your relationship with your father, was he, I don't know how deep you want to get, was he hard
Hardcore would be the word. Yeah.
hardcore? I mean,
Dusk it out, hold
yeah,
up your
my dear.
bootstraps. If you
Yeah.
don't like it, go take a lap around the freeway.
Right.
Yeah. I remember one time making fun of a kid, kind of mocking the way she was throwing, and my dad said, "Take a lap." And I'm like, "What?" And he was not going to have any ill behavior. I think I was 12, maybe take a lap in my catcher's gear around the West Garden Grove field. It was a little rough. But yeah, he was definitely a disciplinary and respect to the game, and felt that it was a game of discipline. So he was our coach for several years. My mom too. My mom played women. My mom actually played on a sponsored team out of Bisbee, Arizona, that was a minor league team for the Cubs. And they had little wooden bats and baseballs basically, and the little skirts, and a cute picture with the little cat eye glasses. And it's a long line of love for the game, that's for sure.
Very cool. You mentioned Garden Grove, one of Lacey's coaches. He went there, right? You guys were schoolmates,
Yes.
right? And then he
Yes,
ended up being the head coach there.
Yeah,
Do you have any stories of a Mark Campbell back in the day?
Yeah, I actually remember him more as a football player because he was a cheerleader, and they actually went to CIF, and we got to cheer at the Anaheim Stadium back in the day, it was called. And he hung with one of my brother-in-laws, and it was a good class. He was class of 79, I was 81. That ages us, but Mark was always, I would say, very focused and intense and very serious about what he did. And he married a fellow cheerleader, Kayla Campbell, her was her name. And we also played little rec ball, as you called it back then, either Little Miss or West Hardin or Bobby Sox. But we all grew up playing the game. I think I joke because Rob Weil also went to high school with us. And I joke, were we drinking softballs in our water or something? And that school was just legendary for softball. Well,
Yeah. Yeah. That was Lacey's playground for a while. Go ahead, Lace.
I mean, I think I started practicing there around like 10 years old. I think 10 or 11.
Yeah.
And we would make the drive every single weekend to Pacifica. And sometimes we'd be on the JV field. Sometimes we'd be on the varsity field. We all want to be on the varsity field. And then obviously the track. There's a lot of memories on that track next to the softball field. So yeah, a lot of memories there for sure.
yeah, kind of.
Did your incident, Lace, happen on the JV field? I'm thinking,
Yes.
okay. I don't know if you, but Cheri, she had a line drive back to the head. She was on Mark Hamill's team, and she had a line drive in practice. Cracked her head wide open, not wide open, but she her a little bit. So she was out for a while, but very cool. Yeah, you being a cheerleader is funny. Lace, what did we used to do when a cheerleader or a group of cheerleaders would? What did we used to do? You don't remember?
Well, it was mostly what you would say, Dad. It was like, if you ever become a cheerleader, we're gonna kick you out of the house.
I told my youngest daughter, cheerleaders are not athletes after my experience, but they really are. It's just
They
a different kind of athleticism, and it's so much more intense now than it was in our day.
Yeah, I'd always go behind her and put my hands around her eyes so that when they wouldn't get interested.
Well, and then the name Lacie comes from
A cheerleader, yeah. I used to be a head basketball coach in Brea. Actually, we were neighbors there for a while. And one of the cheerleaders was named Lacie, and I'm like, yeah, that's a great name for all my kids. And we ended up naming her that. Very cool, Cheri. So let's dive into. I know from your bio you were a recruiter in the corporate world for a while, a long time. What kind of describe you getting into recruiting for the softball side, or how did you kind of get into the softball realm and then the recruiting part?
Yeah, no kidding. I spent 28 years in telecom and sales and marketing and had my own recruiting company. And, until 9/11, I was actually working out of the house, raising my kids, doing headhunting really for corporate executives. And that was amazing. But 9/11 kind of took down a lot of business. And back then, my kids were they were young, just getting into softball. I have a son, Nick. He's actually my partner. So we should do a daughter-son podcast because
That would be
he
cool.
played with the likes of Nolan Arenado. And, you just didn't know how talented your kids were. You just formed teams with kids that could play, and we were in the early days of travel ball. And so they had the Los Flores Giants. And, they've gone on to do great things. But our son just didn't have an aspiration for the next level. It was a joke. We were on but I didn't even put this in my bio, but we were on whatever they call it, the TV show that was called Trading Spouses. And it was about softball. It's the funniest thing ever because it was Lauren Chamberlain and that whole team that had won 10 and under nationals was on this TV show, and people don't even remember it, but they make fun of it and really produce it. But it was kind of funny now when you look back, but it was traumatic back then. But it was not something that, people understood that it was not produced. They really thought that's who we were. But then my daughter Shannon grew up playing her first rec ball team. She came running over and she had this new friend, and she couldn't say the word Lauren. She called her Warren. To Shannon, nobody named their kid Warren. What was your new friend? And she said, Lauren. The little girl says, Lauren. It was Lauren Chamberlain. And so her and Lauren were enriched to be a girl all together. And all of a sudden we had this all-star team. And then I met Brett Donaio, and he had all these relationships with Tustin softball. And so it was like Emmy Kerner, Hallie Wilson, Lauren Chamberlain, Allison. Allison played at San Jose lately. And a great pitcher. She was at Fountain Valley High. And we just had this little 10 and under team that just was amazing. But travel ball or finding teams to compete in 2003 were not a very big thing. So we went back to rec ball and then formed a team. They won national. They were amazing. And then I had my youngest one, Cheri, terrific athlete, a little bit of the rebel in the family. She's now a NIL Title IX litigation attorney, but she ended up playing with the Romeros, the Knightons, the Cruz sisters. I mean, the whole bundle of them. But I always stayed in 10 and under. I just loved the authenticity, the genuineness. Now, the parents were always a little bit more crazy in 10 than older, but I ended up doing 10 and under for 15 years. And I cut myself off of the team because I was about ready to choke a family. My son goes, get out of the dugout. He had to check me, right?
Right.
But it's kind of my legacy of like the 10 and under coach with the most famous players ever, but I don't ever take credit for them. But I had a nice compliment from Melissa Romero when the NCAA Player of the Year at Michigan. She wrote this nice Facebook and started off by thanking Cheri Naudin. I'm like, what? That's 10 and under coach. And she said, Cheri, you taught her to love the game. And then she went on to play for Mark because she was age-wise between my two daughters. So she needed to move up and move on. Went to play for Mark, and there was your history. So our youngest one ended up playing college soccer instead.
Oh,
She
wow.
played at Central Arkansas and then went on to Baylor Law School. So the reason I say that is that's what got me into recruiting, is understanding each child had their own path, their own academics. Shannon, the middle one, ended up playing at Kansas, played in Mexico. She was a grad assistant. And you just watched this all happen. And when we moved to Texas in 07, we got laid off. I was laid out of telecom. And I started doing flapper training and catcher training. And I, too, had coached Jen Schroeder's younger sister. So there, all of a sudden, she was doing this catcher thing. And she came to Dallas. And, the moral of the story is relationships matter. And connecting with people that love the game the same way and everybody giving what they can give to the sport. Everybody needs all hands on deck. It's not just your travel coach or just your pitching coach. And it's not just your dad or your mom. It's always, and this is what I think has helped my strategy to do work success for the individual student athlete, always. Then the team wins, the brand wins, the parents win, everybody wins if we focus on what's in the best interest of that student athlete. And that's why I created an individual model to help them through their path, because the kind of phone calls you get can't equate to Lacie or, Coach Ham's experience. It's what's unique for them. And now I'm almost 1,200 student athletes deep. I'm 621 talented. And so now I have the relationship to say, well, when I do a visit prep, I did one yesterday for a young lady joining a visit on Thursday. As I said, here's what I've learned in the past, and here's what you should think about. But if you go over here or you go over here, this is what the effects of being in the past. So I'm not telling them what to do. I'm not telling them where to commit. I've actually created a decision grid at the end, and I make them rank it and grade it. And now with the portal and JUCO, there's so many more variables. I really have to be conscientious about their why and what their purpose is and what they're really trying to get out of it. I don't even focus on college degree, their major, because I always say to you, Russ, what did you want to be when you were 16, right? It's never what. Yeah, see. And did you become a fireman? Okay. So this will age me again. I would say I wanted to be Pat Benatar. I can't sing. Sure, I love rock and roll, but I can't sing. And I mean, that's just the maturity level of a 16-year-old, right?
So, Lacie, you didn't know, I've never told you this, but I did. I had a poster of Pat Benatar in my room at one point.
She was a rocker. She was one of the original female rockers, And,
Yeah, so Lace, thank you for that, Cheri. I appreciate it. And we're going to dive deep into each of those categories that you talk about. But Lace, your 10U experience was probably, your 10, because her 10U and her 12U were the same coach. So I don't know, dive into the 10U, your experience and what your thoughts are in that.
So 10U, my first travel, like that's when I went straight into travel ball, was after 8U All-Stars, which that coach became my 10U coach for Team Mizuno and the 10U. And then the next year of 10U, we became Batbusters. So that's when the merge happened. And then we didn't do so well, like Team Mizuno wise, I don't think.
First year was now.
First year 10s, we were just like kind of getting all the girls together. And then second year 10s was very, very serious. I think a lot of girls came back from the first year, and then we added some really good players. And that's when we went to Tennessee for ASA Nationals. And we came up in second against Tennessee Mojo in like the championship series. But that was kind of my first taste of like competitive travel ball and rivalries. So we
got some of those too.
We were rivals with Impact Gold,
Oh.
Tennessee Mojo, of course. Yeah, just a few other teams too. Like people just don't like the Batbusters in general, for sure. And then we went into 12U, and 12U was when we really grew as a team. Is when we went to USSSA Nationals in Kansas City, and we won that tournament, which was really fun. It was like on TV and everything, and yeah. Then kind of the team broke off because then Mark was like, "I want you, and I want you." So that was my 10U and 12U experience. But some of those girls were the ones that I ended up playing for in 18U on that championship team, which was kind of surreal in a way. And then, yeah, that really just kickstarted my softball career, really.
Yep, and her 10U, 12U coach set the tone, right? He was a gentle. He was a smaller guy, but he kind of tried to have the persona of Mike Stith, right? Yeller, screamer, discipline. You run, if you make a mistake, but then he was also very gentle and very kind. So, yeah, I think we had a good experience on that. Cheri, let's jump to because Lacie didn't have an advocate for a long time. So talk about the recruiting with girls now, because the recruiting obviously is different from post-COVID. Rather than now, everything has changed. With recruiting, do you have like a laundry list of what they should be doing prior to 8th grade or 9th grade? How soon do you kind of get them?
So it depends on their talent level, right? And we've all seen that top level kid in 10s and 12s. You can see them. I knew the Romeros the minute I met them, just that elite talent level that's just God-given and inherent in their family culture too. So I always look for a good kid, good grade, good family, good team, and people that were dedicated to the sport, because that's what it takes. It's a family commitment. Right. And so I'll typically take 8th graders if they're on top level teams and they meet that kind of criteria. And I always ask, where are they going? Because my program is very structured, because I feel if you have a system that's sticky and it has components in it to develop them, then they're going to get recruited if they're doing the right things. And time management, I teach them a time management course I created myself called 168 Hours in the Week. And what are you doing with it? And what are your priorities? And then that helps them understand that there's commitment to it and how much time you're spending on Netflix or TikTok, and, where's your priorities. And the kids that are dedicated, that engage in it, they love it. It's not the burnout. They're not feeling stressed or pulled through it, because they really genuinely love it. And it's what the family does, right? So I'll take 8th graders, but definitely, man, the 9th graders started getting, ever since 22, when they changed it to not recruiting 7th and 8th graders, you still have to get evaluation. And that's a misunderstanding to the general population is, recruiting doesn't start until their junior year. No, that's when the decisions are being made. And they've spent 2 years recruiting you. 12 days, 6 weekends in fall. And it used to be 8 weekends. They just took a week off now. Now it's 7 weeks in summer. And it's so compacted. I feel stressed even talking about it because you have to get over 475,000 registered softball players into 8,000 opportunities. And the math is just, I mean, divide that, it's point oh something something, It is not, and I heard some pros say this last weekend at a camp that, oh, it's for everybody and you can find your spot. I just can't say that anymore. Just because you want to play doesn't mean you get to play or that you can play where you want to play. And the biggest message I think parents miss is that the college coaches pick them. I have even clients, even though I tell them that, say, well, we only want to go to the foreign schools and we want to go to a big school or a small school and only this major, when even their test scores don't even equate to that kind of major, right? And you try to help them along, but no, we're not clicking on their dream. I used this analogy the other day that I think too many parents are putting the tiara on their head and the little Disneyland dress, and they're taking them to Disneyland, and, they're just going to maneuver and manipulate until it comes out their way when they don't realize that the college coaches have to pick them. And until they understand that and then they get choices, they don't understand the process. And I think, sadly, many will quit in sport before they actually get recruited because it didn't turn out like mom and dad said, where you buy your ticket at Disneyland and you show up in your dress and your tiara and everything just comes out perfect. And I think the reality is big girl reality. And, kind of back to the pull up your big girl pants and here we go, because it's not what you thought it was going to be. And Lacie, I could probably turn the mic on you now. It's not as easy as everybody dreamed it to be, correct?
No. Are you talking about recruiting or college, like college softball?
Playing in college.
Oh, yeah. I'm exhausted.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
And I would say the recruiting too. It's a very tedious, time-consuming process. And what I try to do is help them understand where their talent level fits and what type of exposure they could get. And I love Tim Walton. So I always say, if Tim Walton's not standing at your sideline, you're not going to get recruited at Florida. You can get on a plane, you can go to camp with 100 or 200 kids 8 times a year. And it's just, I haven't seen it happen yet. And 1,200 kids where you pick the school of your choice and you get on a plane, you go to the camp and boom, you're recruited. There's just so much more to the system and to the sport and to the business behind it, whether that's fair or not, especially to the people that don't have a lot of money. But then why are you going to camps only trying to get recruited to the similar 1,600 or 50 plus schools? You can't possibly pick and choose. And yet, you'll see social media come at me for that. Oh, well, my kid went through a camp and she got recruited. Well, good for you. I'm happy, but that's just like luck of the draw more so than an actual strategy.
Right. Yeah. What I've noticed is, top players, let's say top 25, now they have these, now you can buy, you can pay for being ranked, right? But this is hypothetically, the top 25 that are ranked, they're actually interviewing the colleges, right? They have their choice, right? They can go to each college and find out what the right fit is. Obviously, you do want to find the right fit as far as
Correct.
colors, but if you're not the top tier, you're selling yourself, and there's so you help out with that. You help selling
Absolutely.
themselves, and
And even the top talented kids don't always get their choice.
right,
And they are more or less going to college to play softball. So all of those other GPAs and test scores and all those other things become less and less important. They really have to understand that they are going to be a full-time softball player in college. And by the way, you're going to get a college degree over here on the side. I won't rat out one of the schools that my daughter visited. It was one of the big ones with all the rings. And they said, no, you're not going to study that at this university. You won't be able to. And what they're trying to say is, it's not that it's not important, but we have certain hours that we can be on our field. And, the med school one is always an issue, or nursing. They all say, oh, no, you can come here. And yes, we have that degree. But the likelihood of you studying that degree is just really, really difficult. And I've had podcasts with high academic people that, in fact, it was the academic advisors for St. John and Texas State that said, you got 2 years of general ed, and you have to get to a university, and almost all universities have a route to what you want. So if you want nursing, come in and get a biology degree, come get in a general science degree, and then go get a master's in nursing when you're done, when you actually get to pick and dedicate yourself to that particular major. But, everybody has different opinions about that. And education is highly important to me. When you look at my commit list, I've got kids all over Ivy League. I can't be any prouder about, any opportunity to be able to get a degree from an Ivy League. It just sets you up for 40 years. So, it's different. I think a lot of people come in with what I think the NCAA tells them, which is, pick your major and pick the schools that match those majors and go to their camp. Then voila, it's all so easy.